Hey, welcome to Facebook Live for Pro Stitcher. I'm here this week with Diane Graff Henry, Real Life Quilting. And you may notice that we were 3 minutes late because we were trying to get a couple of things squared away on the technical side, and it's going good now. So it's all right. We're here. Diane, you're I would say in from Washington, D.C., but you're actually just in D.C. You didn't travel anywhere today.
I know. I live in actually Virginia, but right outside the DC area.
Okay. So I see you have a sweatshirt there. I went ahead and did the dress for the weather you want. And I don't know if that's a smart move, but I'm inside, so it's going to work out today.
I'm in a converted garage studio, which I love, except in the wintertime. It was 60 degrees in here when I opened the door. So I've got a little space heater going. I wore my long sleeve.
Nice.
I'm ready for it.
Well, so we've done a few Facebook Lives, and I've been able to ask each of the guests what has brought them to quilting, or maybe how long you've been quilting / been with Pro Stitcher. And I know you're probably going to throw up some pretty stellar numbers.
I've been doing it a long time. I was introduced to quilting when I was 4. My grandmother taught me how to hand piece, and it had to be perfect. So eye twitching, lots of eye twitching in my family. Not really, but it taught me to do it well and to learn how to get it right the first time. And I love the tools that make it easy. So I was a prize-winning hand quilter for years. Really enjoyed it. Developed arthritis. I don't know if you can see my fingers are starting to bend. So the pulling a needle wasn't so much fun anymore. And once I put my hands on a long arm, I was like, where have you been all my life? Loved the handy quilters right from the beginning. And when I saw what Pro Stitcher could do, I realized what a great tool it is. So it does what I don't want to do, or what it does better than me, which is a lot of stuff. And so I really like it. I've had a machine since 2008. And I bought my first machine right out of the gate with a Pro Stitcher. It was called Pro Stitcher.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I started with Pro Stitcher Classic. So I've been all iterations. Yeah.
Okay, so you've gone through a few upgrades, because of course the people joining us today and the people who join us from Pro Stitcher Posse and Pro Stitcher Quilters, they have recently enjoyed our update to PS Connect in May, but you've seen it from PS Connect to PS Premium, PS Classic, PS Standard, I think was in there as well. Yep. And do you have any words of encouragement for the viewers who are still skeptical?
Oh yeah, you guys, all the little nooglies that we're experiencing whenever there's a transition, because when we went from Classic to Standard, there were people like, no, and I tried Standard and was like, never going back. It's so great. And Premium brought even more to the table. Now with Connect, it's just minor. We're working through the growing pains. And, 6 months from now, we won't even be thinking about this. We'll just be like, where was it all our lives? So, I love
1 month from now.
Yeah, I'm going to be demoing with 737 right now. So, yeah, it's fine. And Pro Stitcher it's just such a great tool. It is so convenient and so handy to have. I really couldn't do what I do. I quote commercially. I think you can see my 2 big bad boys in the background. I couldn't imagine doing what I do without having a Pro Stitcher. So it's on both these machines.
So I'm nervous to ask, do you only have 2 long arms?
No, I have 3.
Never mind. Okay. That's what you were going to say.
Are we having therapy, or are we doing?
No, that's awesome. No, this is absolute brag session. You have 3. That's fantastic. Okay.
I also have a Sweet 16. It's in my basement. I have a classroom in my basement, and so I can teach people and have group sewing sessions. And since most people don't have access to a long arm, it's like a big old stationary machine, so they understand how to use it and they can play with it downstairs. And I use it and no customer work ever gets done on it. So it's my like private little play machine. And so I can go down there and do couching and felting with the felting foot and all that fun stuff that I I don't necessarily have time to do. I've got customer work on this one, and another one's going to be loaded soon on this one. So they're always kind of occupied up here with real work.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Right.
We have quite a few comments from, it appears, I'm just going to say all over the world, because we have England, Canada, United States. Maybe there'll be a few folks from the Southern Hemisphere hop on as well. Pennsylvania, Ohio. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have people join. It's nice to know that there's folks out there that are excited about long arm quilting too and want to know something different. And I hope I can help somebody today.
Yeah, let's go ahead, and Diane is going to give us a demonstration using her Pro Stitcher simulator, which she'll tell you more about, on borders, beyond borders, and working some incredible magic. She's taught this class for a few years, I believe, with the evolving technology. So I'm excited to see it happen. So let's go ahead. Oh, there we go. We have the Southern Hemisphere. Hi, Catherine Beer from Australia. So anyway, Jacob, of course, is our producer, and he is always setting up the screens and fixing the technical things for us. So we are ready to go. We have the Pro Stitcher screen in view, and Diane and I are on the side here, and I'll turn it over to Diane.
All right, thanks. So when I was asked to do this, I think this is a helpful topic. When I started with Pro Stitcher Classic, there were border and corner sets available in the program. And one of the first things I did was a border and corner set. And I quickly found, with the limited tools available at that time in Pro Stitcher Classic, that it just wasn't that much fun. You had to drop a corner, fill in between, try to make it match. And everything was about, you couldn't really tell what was on the screen and where the corner was on the screen, because you could only work with one design at a time. So I would drop the two corners and then tried to make it match in the middle and make the ends, the points match. And I quickly thought, this is not fun. And I didn't spend this kind of money to not have it be fun. So I'm going to do something different. So I started doing all sorts of different border treatments. And when I was thinking about it for this class, I really think the secret to my success on this is, what I do is, when I look at the border, I don't think of it as a corner that's got to have something long and straight in between. I look at it as a space that just needs to be filled. And so I break it up into whatever space I want. If you look at the sample that I had posted as part of the advertisement for this class, if you can zoom in on that picture whenever you get a chance, you'll see there's lots of different border treatments and different ideas on there. I'm going to show you the fast and easiest one, but you can break this border into triangle shapes, into square shapes, rectangle shapes. You can even get totally abstract. Now that we have the power of Pro Stitcher and Designer together, you can fill a border with any kind of designs that you want. And so I just want you guys to get creative and realize there are no rules. Just have fun with it. If you like it, that's the right answer. There are no wrong answers. There is only I like it or I don't like it. And that's what rules in my house. What rules in your house is what you like and don't like. So just have fun with the machine and play around with it. So I want to show you really quickly the fastest and easiest way to do a border with no corners. I call this getting out of the corner. And I'm using here my simulator to make it easy. I'm going to move my crosshairs here. You can see I've marked basically a border shape. You can actually mark your actual border while the quilt is loaded on your frame, and then take that thumb drive to a simulator and play around with auditioning different designs and playing with different design effects for the quilt you're actually using. So don't miss playing with that like that. This is the area that I normally set up to do a border and corner set. You can see it fills the rectangle and it's going just slightly inside the lines. So I would mark the actual seam lines and the outer edge of the border. And then when I create my area, I'm coming in just a little bit, because normally with border and corner sets, you don't want any part of the border hiding under a binding. You want it floating inside the border space. I'm going to use this same area, but I'm not going to use it in this shape for this technique. So I'm going to first go to area and select my area, and I'm going to reshape it using the transform tool. I don't know if you've used this, but I love the transform tool. It has made doing borders so much easier. When you use the transform tool, the other thing you want to make sure of is that under modify and resize, you want to make sure lock aspect ratio is not activated. When you deactivate lock aspect ratio and you're using this tool, you can move one side and the other side stays position. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm going to line this edge up with the inner edge of the border, because effectively what I'm going to do is turn this into a log cabin shape. I'm going to run the design all the way off the edge here, and I'm actually going to run it a little bit off the edge here. So let me pull the border up a little bit so that I can get a crop. And then I'm going to come out here and go wide. Actually, for this, the top and bottom, I'm going to go to just about right there. So I've reshaped my design right here, and I mean my area, and I'm ready to load a design. So I'm going to go back to select and go to file. And let's talk about what kind of design works in this space. Really, technically any do, but I think you can understand, since I'm running it off the edge of the quilt on this side and across the top, I probably don't want to use a motif like a heart, a set of hearts going across or something like that, because again, don't want that cropped off. So you could play around with playing with motifs, and if you find an approach that you like, more power to you. I'd love to hear about it. But what I do is I usually am looking for a design that kind of reads as a border to border design. If you notice, this design is very squared off edges, and it's also textural. It doesn't have a motif in it. So no matter how I put it in here, where I crop it roughly, it's going to look good. So I've got my design. It's a little bit big for the border I've got. So I'm going to go now to modify, resize, lock aspect ratio, go to height, and I'm going to change it because it's just easier. I'm going to change it to about, let's change it to 4 inches and hit enter and see what we get. Yeah, there we go. Now we're more in the size that I can use it for. So easily now I can go to repeat using my area for repeat and hit fill. It'll put that one repeat. I'm going to add another repeat, add another repeat. And if you notice, I'm adding a lot of repeats. I'm going to keep my eye on the width here, and I'm going to go as wide as my quilt is long. I always measure my quilts before I load them so that I know what the width and the length is. I want to go even a little bit beyond just so I have something to crop. So I'm going to go even a little bit longer than I think my border is long, or my quilt is long. Then I get to use the modify align tool to put it on the left-hand side of that area and align it along the bottom of that area. So I'm going to zoom in and look. So let's go to zoom, or let's just hit refresh first and see. Still a little bit. I want to zoom in on this area so I can see how it looks in the border. I kind of like that. I'm going to leave it just like that. And now I would resize it if I needed it to go smaller. I would do whatever I needed to do as far as changing it. If at this point, this is when you want to get it the way you want it. And then I'm going to baseline, and I'm actually going to save that long piece. So I would do a file, save selected, and save it. And I save it with the name of the quilt and border, the word border, so that I have it to use again as a side piece. What I'm going to do for here, just to make it easy, is I'm just going to make a copy of the design and put it up here so I can show you the next step. So I'm going to edit, duplicate, and then I'm going to take the duplicate. Oh, and it's moved it. It's over on the side. Hold on just a sec. It's done it as a continuous. There it is. There's my duplicate. Let me bring it up here where I can find it again. All right. So let's go back to the repeat blustery breeze, refresh. Now I can crop this piece. And all I have to do now is go to modify, crop outside, and lock the edges. Baseline, and I would go ahead and save it. Before you baseline, you can still adjust the position of the design if you want to because of cropping. But I would just go ahead and baseline this and save it as the top and bottom border. So now I'm ready to stitch it out. I stitch across. I finish that, go to the bottom of the quilt, line that I would then at this point, let me duplicate it so I can show you again. Duplicate this one. I would take this design, move it to the bottom of the quilt, modify, rotate, mirror it, and flip it. Now do you see this becomes the bottom edge? This is the inner edge of the border, and I'm going to line this edge up along this line so that again, I'm running it as a as a log cabin style layout. So I'm going to line it up against this edge. Now I stitch the bottom border. I've already done the center of the quilt. I personally like to in the ditch. I've already in the ditch this seam all as I quilted the center of the quilt. So now I've got this line going this direction. Now I literally, because I use a quick loading system for my frame, and you can do it even if you're pinning, take the quilt off the frame and turn it, rotate the quilt sideways. So now the sides, this side would become the top and this side will become the bottom. And then I use this border piece, the extra that I have, to position it. I'll create a new area across the top running all the way down this length. I'll rotate this in the same direction flow as this border, and I'll position it here, crop it, baseline and save it. Then that becomes the part I will run in this section, and then I will run it from here in this section, and then I'm done. It goes quick and easy, fast. I've done it with all sorts of different kinds of designs. I can show you a sample of what it looks like. And if you notice, I've run the same design here in the actual center of the quilt. I just was able to resize it. So this is a large version of this pantograph. This is the smaller version. And when they nestle together in the corners, the textures just blend together and you just see a beautiful texture going around the border of the quilt. You don't really see that there's a corner or anything like that. And all the emphasis is then on the center. So you can use the same design, resize it, whatever size you'd like, and it just fills the space and goes right in. I love this technique. So easy, and I don't need another coordinating set of designs. I can just use the one design I've already been using as an edge to edge. Do we have any questions?
I was just talking on mute, so that's fun. We have a question from Kathleen. You mentioned Transform, and she was wondering if you had any more information on how to use it.
Transform is like a quick way to resize or to change the orientation of your design. So I'm going to use the one I have selected here, this bottom design. I'll activate Transform, and do you see it puts a box around it? So here, let me zoom in specifically on down here. There we go. And let's activate Transform. So do you see the box? You've got the box around the design. This little circle allows me to rotate the design. So 2-point rotation, I've got it right here. I mean, it's not perfectly 2-point, but it's on the screen. You can very easily change very minor changes to the rotation. If you notice 2.14, very precise rotation. So my Pro Stitcher Lite people, this is a border you can do. This is an easy border because you don't have 2-point rotation, but you can use it here. The other thing is with Transform, if modify, resize, if lock aspect ratio is off, when you've got to make a corner and border match and get a corner the border aligned with the two start and ends of the two corners, do you see you can position one side and then the other side, because that's the first side stays put, you can lengthen or shorten the other side with no problem. For lock, if you've got lock aspect ratio activated, I just want to show you when I widen, do you see it gets taller as well? So lock aspect ratio, this is a setting that applies to any kind of resizing you're doing, whether it's using lock aspect ratio, changing it within the resize screen, or even when you're resizing an area. You've always got to remember to come to this screen to change the setting of lock aspect ratio. So that's the only real thing to keep in mind. Remembering lock aspect ratio works on all of the resize screens and all the resize options.
Diane, would you say that you use transform often? Because I have to say, when you're moving the design and the left side is locked or just the right side is locked and you're able to scoot in only one direction, I don't use the transform tool very much ever, but that's a fantastic trick. Would you say that you use it more than just resize, or is it a go-to for you?
It is. Well, for borders and corners, if I'm doing a border and corner, it's the only reason why I'll do a border and corner set now. Okay. Oh. Really. I had such an aversion to border and corners with Pro Stitcher Connect or Pro Stitcher Classic. It stuck. It really stuck with me. And my actual sample for Pro Stitcher, I'll show you right quick. When I did this, when I first became an educator, they made me do a sample of Pro Stitcher things. And I did the top corner. Do you see? But I never did the sides. Trying to make it match again was like, forget it. I'm not going to do it. So I've always taught classes with, you have so many more options with Pro Stitcher than this. If you look, I mean, a triangle, a border can be broken into triangle shapes. Here, do you see I've got triangle designs? Now I can easily put a triangle design that connects here and another one that connects here and just run a triangle shape in that border. And what it does, playing around with borders like this, what it gives you is more bang for your buck. People don't even question a border and corner. They just look at it and go, oh. But when you do something different in a border, people will stop and ask you, how did you do that? Or, oh, you put extra work in. And really and truly, you're making it easier on yourself to do it. So I use lock aspect ratio to get designs to fit exactly where I want them in the space. It's better than skew a little bit because sometimes skew can distort. And for border and corners, it really works great. I mean, that feature, we were so excited when we got that feature as far as when it joined the Pro Stitcher set of features. It's just made a huge difference. I use it a lot.
So we have a question from Wanda, and it is, do I need to set an overall area of the quilt, or just as sorry, I'm misreading this. Can you see it on there? Do I need to set an overall area of the quilt, or
if you're going to set, when you do the border to border section in the center, however you fill that space, you might need an area for that. But when you're just focusing on this border, you concentrate on just the border, just that top piece. The reason why I set it up much longer is because quilts are not usually square. Usually the sides are longer than the top and bottom. And when I load the quilt to first start quilting, I usually work from top to bottom. So I'm going to be quilting that top piece first. So I just set it up much longer so I have plenty to crop off. And then I position it using the area to get it positioned exactly where I want it in the border space. I just use just that bit of the border to set it up.
And do you have oh, sorry.
That's
okay.
Do you have
so you're talking about you just need to set up the area for one log of your log cabin approach.
Right. I do it for the top log. The top log, there's the area. And then I do it, and then I don't need it for the bottom because I've got it set up and it should roughly match the width of the quilt. You can always pull it out a little bit longer if you need to. But for the long sides, that's when you have to rotate the quilt, and that will be a second area because more than likely this area is going to be longer this way than this area is this way. The length of this area is going to be longer. Or
So
the width position.
One other quick one. Do you have information on how a person might transform if they're using Pro Stitcher Lite? Because the transform button is not included with Pro Stitcher Lite.
Then you're going to come to here, to the workspace, and you're going to lock or unlock your aspect ratio and resize, just the way we do, resize. Okay, so you'll know, yeah, and this for your area is where you'll really want to resize because you're going to be cropping against this when you lengthen. But when you're doing the transform in Pro Stitcher Lite, you do not have access to this button, so all your resizing is going to be right here.
And that's modify, resize, and then on the right-hand side there, the right-hand panel.
Modify, resize, and then change here, and you go to lock aspect ratio or not, depending on what you need.
So we have in the comments mention of another border class, and I have to say there's probably 100 ways to do borders.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. I teach private classes. I also teach border and corners for Pro Stitcher for Handy Quilter or at events. So the best place to get information about it is to either look on the websites, look on the Handy Quilter education page. Under education, there's a calendar of events. You can look for Pro Stitcher events and check the website for the specific retailer to see if they're doing a border class. We teach it as part of a Moving On with Pro Stitcher class for Handy Quilter. I have at least 3 or 4 different border classes that show you all, private classes that show you all the different techniques I use. And I mean, I just think of them all. I think of different ways. This sample actually was created as a freehand sample, but I've recreated everything on here using Pro Stitcher. So the techniques of doing different borders and coming up with different ideas, it's just sort of like, what can't you do? You really can't. The Pro Stitcher family of software gives you the best ability to do whatever you need to do with whatever border shape you've got.
So we are down to the end of our Facebook Live, and we do have some more questions in the comments. And I'm hopeful that you'll join us in the Facebook Pro Stitcher Facebook page under events, which is where this is hosted initially, and maybe hop in and hit some of those questions for us. And then this video will also be available on YouTube right after this post. And although it's not recommended to ever put a date or time right on a video, because then you'll say, oh, that was from so-and-so. But this is our last Pro Stitcher Live for this year. And I won't say the year, so that way it'll be evergreen. And we have a whole bunch of talent already booked through May, as of right now, through May of next year. So I'm very excited to be bringing more tidbits of little chunks of education to our Pro Stitcher quilters. And Diane, thank you so much for being on and demonstrating. I've actually never done borders this way, and I definitely think this would be better than the way I was doing it before.
I so enjoyed it, and I hope it helps someone, and I definitely will be getting on to answer questions. So, and you can find me on Facebook under Diane Graff Henry. If you want to send me a question directly, you're welcome to. But yeah, I've enjoyed myself, and this was so much fun. And thanks for doing this, Jen. We really do appreciate you and all that you do to support us as Pro Stitcher quilters, because we're all Pro Stitchers, right? We're all in this together.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.